They thought we were weak, just children, easy targets. But the moment they took us, they made the biggest mistake in galactic history. What they didn't know? Every child they kidnapped was trained for this. Every parent? A soldier in disguise. And now, the hunters have become the hunted. This isn't a rescue. It's a reckoning. Welcome to the story of the colony they should have never touched. Welcome to the day humanity fought fire with fury. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. Captain Orvek stood proudly on the command deck of his ship, the Obsidian Fang. The floor vibrated with music and stomping feet as his crew of alien raiders danced, drank, and roared with laughter. Lights blinked across the walls like stars in motion, casting wild colors on the polished black metal. It was a scene of celebration, loud and full of chaos, just how Orvek liked it. He held up a tall glass filled with bubbling green liquid, his sharp teeth gleaming as he shouted over the noise. To the greatest score in our history, he roared. 48 human children taken from right under their parents' noses. His crew exploded in cheers. Clawed hands, tentacles, and other strange limbs slapped against one another in celebration. They were smug, careless, and fully convinced that nothing could touch them now. They had done what most pirates only dreamed of, capturing the young of humanity, a species known for their emotional bonds and endless protectiveness. The ransom would be enormous. Orvek imagined the wealth, the fame, the power. No one would dare challenge him after this. Lieutenant Naral slithered forward, his long body covered in green and silver scales. His voice was lower, more cautious. "Captain, the ransom message is ready. Shall I send it to the human colony?" Orvek laughed, waving his hand dismissively. "No. Let them suffer a little longer. Let them feel helpless. That's when they'll pay the most." He walked over to the main screen, which showed the inside of the holding cells. Rows of children sat on benches or floors, some quiet, some crying, some curled up asleep. "Look at them," he said, almost mockingly. "So small, so soft. And people say humans are dangerous?" "Lies." A few crew members chuckled nervously. Naral's tongue flicked in and out, sensing the tension that the others ignored. "Captain, I must remind you," he said carefully. "There are stories of how humans respond when you harm their young. Some say their revenge is like nothing else in the galaxy." "Stories?" Orvek snapped. "Tales told by cowards and failures. The humans are weak. Their technology is old. Their weapons are slow. They probably haven't even noticed their children are missing." From behind the control panel, a young officer hesitated before speaking. "Captain, we picked up a few strange signals during the escape. What if they tagged the children?" Orvek's tail lashed behind him in irritation. "If they did, we're deep inside the Varan mist. Our scanners barely work, and neither will theirs. Our shields are active, and our location is hidden. No, one can find us here." The room fell quiet for a moment, the background music echoing faintly. Then someone raised their drink, and the cheers started again. The crew wanted to believe their captain. They wanted to feel safe. Down in the holding cells, away from the noise and pride, 11-year-old Zane sat against a wall with his eyes half closed. He looked calm, even sleepy, but inside, his mind was racing. The pirates hadn't checked him too closely. They'd missed the small bump in the sole of his left shoe. Slowly, carefully, he reached down and pressed his heel against the floor, activating the tiny device hidden there. A faint pulse traveled through space, silent and invisible, but strong enough to reach his home colony. Zane glanced around. The younger kids were quiet now. Talia, his 9-year-old sister, had been curled up on the floor pretending to cry for hours. In truth, she'd been counting the steps the guards took and noting their timing. A few others had been whispering, playing games with nonsense words. The pirates thought it was just childish noise, but every word had meaning. Every giggle, every insult was part of a plan. Above them, on the command deck, an alarm suddenly chirped. One of the monitors blinked red, then faded back to normal. "Just interference," muttered the crew member at the console. Orvek didn't even look up. "The mist messes with everything. Ignore it." Gnarl stared at the screen a second longer. He had seen something strange in one of the holding cells, but the image was already gone. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Better not to question the captain when he was in such a mood. As the music picked up again, Zane whispered under his breath. It worked. The device had sent the signal. His mother, his father, everyone back at Valamora. They would know. They'd trained for this. The colony had always known something like this could happen. That's why they practiced drills disguised as games, gave out toys that were actually tools, and taught lessons that seemed silly until now. Every child here knew their part. Every one of them was ready. Above, Orvek raised his glass again. Tomorrow, we send our demands. Tomorrow, we show the galaxy what true power looks like. But tomorrow would bring something else, and the Obsidian Fang would never see it coming. In a quiet command room deep beneath Earth's northern hemisphere, the silence broke with a sharp beep. A small blinking light appeared on the monitor in front of Commander Soren Velez. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. The signal was faint but unmistakable. It pulsed from the far edges of the Valamora system, exactly where he had feared it might come from. "It started," he said quietly. Around him, officers snapped to attention. No alarms, no shouting. Everything was calm, focused, practiced. This wasn't a surprise, it was a plan. For years, Earth had prepared for a moment like this. Colonies like Valamora weren't just homes. They were shields and signals. Places, built to detect and react. And now, they had. Within minutes, word reached the Earth Defense Council. High over the planet, in orbiting stations, generals reviewed maps and activation codes. On the ground, leaders contacted colony representatives. Nobody panicked. They didn't need to. Protocols had already been written. Equipment was already waiting. The sleeping fire had been lit. Back on Valamora, Dr. Lena Miles stood beside the colony's emergency command terminal. Her hands were steady as she checked the data. The pulse came from her son, Zane. Relief and pride filled her chest, but she didn't show it. There was work to do. Around her, parents, miners, engineers, medics put on body armor and checked weapons. Every adult in the colony had a second role, one they had trained for secretly. "They've taken our children," Dr. Miles said, her voice firm. "Now we take everything from them." Across the control center, her husband, Dev Miles, nodded. Once. He was a quiet man, known for calm logic even under pressure. He tapped a key, and a direct message shot through a secured channel toward Earth's defense fleet. Meanwhile, deep inside the Obsidian Fang, Zane sat back against the cold wall. His part was done for now. He closed his eyes and listened to the whispers around him. Talia was keeping the younger kids calm. They were scared, of course, but they trusted her. She was brave and smart, and she knew what to say. Across the cell block, two boys used pebbles to tap out a rhythm on the floor, echoing a message only the kids would understand. It was time. They began to move. Quietly, slowly. Each child had a task, just like during training. The drills they'd once complained about now came to life. Ellie, the tech prodigy who could rewire a drone from a broken flashlight, had already taken apart the loose panel in her wall. She was working on a signal booster, using stolen alien parts. Boone, the rough but kind teenager who once worked with his father in the mines, had found a way to jam the guards' comms, at least for a few seconds. Above them, the pirates still celebrated. Orvek's arrogance was a shield, one that blinded him to danger. He still believed humans were weak, but in orbit, Earth's warships began to move. Dozens of them, silent, swift. Their engines glowed faintly as they formed a pattern in the darkness of space. Commander Velez stood on the bridge of the Astria, one of Earth's oldest, most powerful ships. Around him, screens showed ship movements and nebula scans. The enemy was hiding deep in the Varan mist, but Earth's long-range sensors had evolved past such tricks. "We've located the signature," an officer reported. "Their base is within the mist. Bring us in slowly," Velez ordered. "No aggressive moves yet. We wait for the signal." Back at Valamora, the colony's hidden launch bay opened. From beneath hills and under buildings, transport ships began to rise into the sky, carrying parents and soldiers alike. No one yelled. No one wept. Each person had a job to do, and they did it with quiet determination. They were not coming as victims. They were coming as defenders. Within the pirate ship, tension grew unnoticed. The children continued their subtle attacks, buttons removed from walls, lights tampered with, sensors shorted out. Talia faked another breakdown, drawing a guard into conversation long enough for a younger child to grab his key chip. It was working. At the same time, Dev Miles stood at a hidden relay station with two other parents. One typed rapidly. The signal boost hit its mark. Ellie's system lit up. For a few seconds, her message reached the human fleet. Inside the Astria, Velez's screen blinked. "We have confirmation from the inside." He didn't smile, but his voice carried strength. "All right, let's wake the galaxy." From every ship in the fleet, weapons began to power up. The sleeping fire of humanity had turned into something else, something ancient, focused, and fierce. They weren't just responding to an attack. They were defending their children, and nothing in the stars burned brighter than that kind of fire. Inside, the Obsidian Fang alarms began to beep. A few crew members looked up from their drinks. Orvek scowled. "Interference again?" he growled. But this time, it wasn't interference. It was the storm, and it had arrived. The dim lights of the Obsidian Fang flickered as if sensing that something was wrong. For the first time since their celebration began, the pirate crew grew quiet. A low hum filled the corridors, not from the ship's systems, but from tension rising in the air. Captain Orvek barked orders to his bridge crew, demanding status updates. None of them had clear answers. Systems were lagging, scanners were fuzzy, communication lines crackled with static. Something was happening, and Orvek didn't like mysteries. Deep inside the holding cells, the children were already in motion. Sane led the way, whispering through their hidden network made of bits of alien tech and human ingenuity. Ellie had managed to boost the signal from her hacked control panel. Boone had disabled the cell block cameras using a copper wire and parts from a pirate's discarded tool belt. Every child had played their part like a note in a song, and now the melody was building to something powerful. Zane crouched near the door of his cell, listening for the guards' footsteps. They came at regular intervals, 3 minutes apart. That was their window. Talia nodded at him from across the hallway. She held a small, jagged piece of metal wrapped in fabric. It was their door key now, thanks to the guard who never noticed his access card missing from his belt. At the same time, in a dark corner of the ship near the power supply corridors, Ellie and a small team of kids reached the control panel for auxiliary lighting. It was unguarded. No one thought children would reach this deep into the ship. Ellie opened it with her bare hands, sparks dancing as she rerouted power. Her small fingers moved with focus far beyond her years. When the last wire was in place, she whispered, "Ready." The signal was sent. Far above the Obsidian Fang, hidden in the red clouds of the Varan mist, Earth's stealth fighters began their operation. These weren't large warships. They were shadows in space. Fast, quiet, and nearly invisible, the fighters slipped through the mist like ghosts. Captain Riven Kor led them from the front. A veteran of more battles than he could count, Riven didn't speak much. He didn't need to. His team knew what to do. "Eyes on the first target," one pilot said into the comm. "Take it out. No lights. No noise," Riven replied. With precision and silence, the Earth fighter fired 2 short blasts. The pirate patrol ship didn't stand a chance. Its engines failed before alarms could sound. It drifted into the mist, lifeless. One by one, the patrol ships fell, each hit quickly and quietly. No warnings, no explosions loud enough to echo. Just fear, spreading like smoke through the pirate ranks. They didn't know who was attacking. They didn't know from where. All they knew was that something had found them. Inside the obsidian fang, Orvek shouted at his crew to tighten defenses. "We are under attack," he finally admitted. But even as he barked orders, the children inside his ship moved faster than his crew. Zane had opened 3 cells already. The younger kids followed the escape plans drilled into them since they were old enough to run. Some crawled through air, vents. Others slipped through hallways, always staying just out of sight. Boone led a small group toward the armory. They weren't trying to steal weapons. They just wanted the security console. It took him less than 2 minutes to disable it. Now Orvek's crew couldn't track their movement. One of the pirates spotted them and lunged. Boone didn't flinch. He swung a metal bar low, hitting the pirate's leg and sending him tumbling. 2 other kids dragged the pirate into a supply room and locked the door. It was fast, clean, efficient. Meanwhile, in the medical bay, Talia led the group, pretending to be sick. They had faked a food allergy scare, drawing in more guards. When one leaned over to check on a child, Talia whispered into her hidden mic, "Now." The lights flickered out. Ellie had done her job. Total blackout. Emergency lights blinked, on for a moment, then vanished. The ship's core systems were being pulled in too many directions. Power was failing. Systems were falling. Orvek's proud ship was now a maze of shadows and confusion. Zane regrouped with the others near the main cell block hallway. "How many out?" he asked quickly. 31, someone answered. "Good, we hold here. Boone's team will redirect the others." The plan was working. Back in space, Earth's fighters completed their final pass. Not a single pirate patrol ship remained. Captain Riven's voice came over the main channel. "Area is clear. Let the command ships move in." The rest of the fleet began its slow, powerful advance. But the true heroes were already inside, already fighting back. Not with brute strength or loud weapons, but with planning, training, and unity. The children of Valamora, once thought helpless and soft, had turned the pirate ship into a battlefield of their own design. Every guard who stood in their way found themselves outmatched, not by size or strength, but by strategy. Captain Orvek watched camera feeds vanish one by one. "What is happening?" he shouted. "Who is doing this?" His crew offered no answers, because none of them could imagine the truth. Their empire was crumbling piece by piece, taken apart by the smallest hands, and this rebellion was only just beginning. Captain Orvek stood frozen in the center of his command deck, eyes darting between the flickering screens. His once proud ship, the Obsidian Fang, now echoed with confusion, panic, and the sounds of defeat. Lights blinked without rhythm. Alerts buzzed from every direction. His trusted officers, who had celebrated with him just hours before, scrambled without orders. He could barely believe what was happening. This wasn't the plan. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. All around him, systems were failing. Security doors opened and closed at random. Cameras showed empty hallways, dark rooms, and flickering sparks. The children, the ones he thought were weak and helpless, were gone from their cells. Some were even showing up on internal feeds, moving in groups, acting like trained operatives. How had they done this? They were just kids. He shouted, "Regroup the crew, find the children, lock down every corridor." But the commands came too late. The sound of footsteps echoed down the hall outside the command center. Not the heavy stomps of pirates, but quick, coordinated movement. The kind that meant someone had a plan. A new voice came through the ship's comm system, clear, calm, and unmistakably human. "This is Captain Riven, Corps of Earth Defense. We've taken control of your ship's outer defenses. Your fleet is gone. Your escape routes are sealed." Orvek's third hand trembled slightly. "Impossible," he muttered. "They can't be here already." But they were. Outside the Obsidian Fang, Earth's fleet had arrived. Massive ships drifted into formation, their hulls reflecting the glowing clouds of the Voron mist. Smaller stealth vessels wove through the shadows, scanning for survivors. Above it all, the command ship Astria stood like a silent judge, watching the last moments of the pirate empire unfold. Commander Soren Velez stood on the bridge of the Astria, arms folded, eyes steady. "Begin final phase," he said quietly. "Let's bring them home." On board the Obsidian Fang, the children had reached their final targets. Boone's team secured the engine bay. Ellie and her tech group fully disabled the security system. Zane and Talia led the last group toward the command deck, supported by Earth's special forces who had finally breached the ship through hidden docking ports. The doors to the command center burst open. Captain Orvek turned just in time to see a tall armored human step through the smoke-filled entrance. Behind him stood Zane, flanked by his sister and the other children, their faces lit by the red emergency lights. The look in their eyes was not one of fear. It was focus, confidence, and something Orvek had never expected: control. The human stepped forward and raised his weapon slightly. "Captain Orvek, surrender your crew and the children. This ends now." You don't understand." Orvek stumbled back. "They're just children. How did they—" Zane spoke before anyone else. "You thought we were weak. You never asked why we were there. You thought Valamora was just another colony. But it wasn't." Orvek's jaw tightened. "What do you mean?" "It was a trap," Zane said simply. "Built just for pirates like you." The children spread out across the room. Talia stepped beside her brother and pulled a small screen from her pocket. She tapped it, revealing a full schematic of the ship's systems. Ellie joined her, tapping commands that shut down the last remaining weapons. "You see," Zane added, "our parents didn't just build homes. They built a test. They raised us for this. We trained. Every week. We drilled in secret. You didn't steal victims, Orvek. You walked into a war game we were ready to win." Behind him, Commander Velez entered the room. His expression was unreadable, but pride filled his voice. "You took our children," he said quietly. "But we prepared them for that. You gave them the final exam we never hoped they'd face. But they passed." Orvek's shoulders sagged. "You can't win every time. There are more of us, more pirates, more raiders. Others will come." Zane looked up at him. "Then we'll be ready for them too." Talia activated the ship's long-range communication system. A new broadcast began, transmitting across open channels, reaching every pirate crew, every slaver, outpost, every dark corner of space. "This is Earth Defense," Talia said, her voice clear. "To anyone who thinks human children are easy targets, think again. Every colony is prepared. Every child is trained. If you try to take us, you will lose." Across the galaxy, screens flickered with the broadcast. Pirate captains paused their planning. Mercenaries shifted uncomfortably. In one corner of space, a raider ship quietly erased a human colony from their map. The message was clear. Back on the Obsidian Fang, Earth's troops began rounding up the remaining pirates. The children, though tired, stayed close to one another, checking in, making sure everyone was safe. Medical teams would arrive soon. Their parents would be there. But they already knew. They had saved themselves. Commander Velez placed a hand on Zane's shoulder. "You led well." Zane nodded, glancing back at his friends. "We all did." As the human ships turned away from the ruined pirate base and headed for home, a sense of peace settled across the fleet. But it wasn't just victory. It was the knowledge that the next generation was not only strong, but ready. Somewhere deep, in space, the fires of rebellion had been lit not by warriors, but by the courage of children, and the galaxy would never forget it.